evening and welcome. The meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Education for Monday, December 11th is called to order. This evening we have Reverend Buddy Moorhead from Lattimore Baptist for our invocation. Reverend.
Let's pray together. Lord, we are so grateful to be able to be in the presence of God today. And Lord, as you have touched our life by being the great and awesome God, we thank you. We thank you that we can come to you with concerns in our life. And Lord, today, I pray especially for our board members as they make decisions for our school system. I pray, Lord, that you'll guide them and direct them in the decisions that will be best for our children, for our staff, and for the administration. And Lord, as we meet today, I pray that the presence of God will be seen in each one of us and that all decisions will be under the leadership of God. Lord, we just love you and we thank you. And it's in the precious name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Fitch, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
Yes, sir. All stand. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that that we add something to the agenda, please.
Well, we're not to that.
Well, I was
We're not
told
to that.
that I could do it right after our prayer and our pledge.
Well, hang on. Per policy, the first item of business in our December meeting is our organizational. We have to do our chair and vice chair vote first. So I'll turn that over to our board secretary, Dr. Fisher.
Mr. Bluntton, there will be a time later in the meeting at section 4.01, the adoption of the agenda, that you can address any agenda items. At this time, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Queen, before we begin the organizational procedures, I would like to take just a moment to thank Mr. Robert Queen, Mr. Joel Shores for their service as chairman and vice chair this year. Mr. Queen, Mr. Shores, your dedication and continued support is appreciated by our school system and our staff. So at this time, pursuant to Board Policy 2200, I will open the floor for nominations for the chairman of the Cleveland County Board of Education.
I nominate Robert Queen.
Nomination of Robert Queen by Walter Sperling. Are there other nominations?
Sorry, you're on now, Mr. Taylor. I'm sorry, I'm responsible for your button. Do you have any nominations?
Mr. Taylor, we are entertaining nominations for the position of Chairman of the Board of Education. So far, we have a nomination of Robert Queen by Walter Sperling. Are there other nominations?
Well, I was going to make a nomination of Ron Umphreys, but he turned me down again.
Okay. Last call, other nominations? Hearing none, I will close the floor for nominations. We do have just one nomination, but we will, as per policy, we will go ahead and vote. All the board members in favor of Robert Queen for the position of chairman, please raise your hand. Mr. Taylor, all right, that's 6. All voting against Mr. Queen? Congratulations, Mr. Queen. You've been elected chairman of the Board of Education by a vote of 6-3. We appreciate your willingness to serve and your leadership for our district. So at this time, I will turn the meeting back over to you for the election of vice chair.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. We'll now open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Joel Shores, vice chair.
And we have a nomination for Mr. Shores by Rodney Fitch. Any other nominations?
Yes, Ronnie Grigg for vice chair.
Have a Nomination of Mr. Grigg by Mr. Blanton. Any other nominations? Okay, last call for nominations. All right, we have two. We have Mr. Shores and Mr. Grigg. We'll take those in order. Those in favor of Mr. Shores for vice chair, if you'd raise your hand. That's 6. Those for Mr. Grigg, if you would raise your hand. All right, that falls in favor of Mr. Shores for vice chair, 6-3. All right, next we have some special recognition. I'll call on Dr. Fisher to introduce those.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would like to recognize one of our team members that needs no introduction, but I'm going to take just a minute to introduce Ryan to you. Ryan Etheridge has been a member of our school district for many years. Ryan has served our district as teacher, as Title I specialist, assistant principal, and now works at our central office in a variety of roles. Ryan began his work at central office managing a grant. And as part of that grant, got involved in threat assessments and the work that we are doing with school safety. Ryan took his responsibilities and ran with that as we've worked over the last several years, identifying, and many of you guys have seen presentations about our threat assessment process, our SMART team process. So Ryan is in the process of getting his doctoral degree from Vanderbilt. And yes, you have to be pretty smart to get into Vanderbilt. Those of you who know Ryan, Ryan definitely fits that bill. Recently, the North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein recognized Ryan Etheridge with the esteemed Dogwood Award. This award, created in 2017, is given to North Carolinians who are dedicated to keeping people safe, healthy, and happy in their communities. Ryan's work with Cleveland County Schools definitely exhibits that. Dr. Hunnell and Dr. Shull accompany Ryan and his wife Brittany at the State Bar Association for their in-person recognition of his work and providing advisement and best practices for policies related to student mental health, cell phone use in school, and the assessment process. Ryan had the opportunity to present to regional superintendents Friday in a regional superintendent meeting and wowed that group, and they asked specifically if Ryan can meet with members of their staff and really share what we were doing in Cleveland County, let their practices line up against our practices with the good things that are going on in Cleveland County schools. So join me in congratulating Ryan Etheridge on his accomplishment and recognition at the state level.
Good job. Congratulations. Hey.
Come on back.
Next, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recognize Penny Clontz. Ms. Clontz has been extremely active in her work with the Cleveland County Work-Based Learning Internship Program. I know you've heard a lot about that. You're probably tired of seeing me send information that Ms. Clontz is sending me to recognize some of the great things that are going on in our community with our students and our CTE program. The internship program is something we've talked about for years. And as we worked under the direction of Dr. Brian Hunnell and Ms. Rhonda Benfield to create this position for work-based learning and internships, Ms. Clontz has taken this and really run with that and providing great opportunities for our students and our community. It's great to hear from the students and their perspective about the successes they're having, But quite honestly, it's even more rewarding to hear these businesses talk about what a great job our students are doing and how excited they are. And I know last year we had one of them said, I had one intern, I'd take 10 or 15 more if I could get them. So that's great. So I'm going to bring Penny up, and I think she's got some information she's going to share with exciting things happening with work-based learning. Thanks, Penny.
Thank you for the opportunity. I shared a rack card with you all because I just wasn't sure if I could remember to mention all the benefits. Last year, a concerted emphasis was directed towards enhancing the quality and significance of work-based learning opportunities for career and technical education students. And so tonight, I'd like to give you an update on the high school work-based learning program. Last fall, as you can see, we started with 5 students in an internship, and you can see where they were placed, different facilities around Cleveland County. Then in the spring, we had 15 students. We expanded to 15 students from across the county, and they completed an internship. At the conclusion of the semester in the spring, a program was held where students gave final presentations. Parents and business hosts were invited. We also had a sign-in ceremony for students entering full-time employment or registering to become an apprentice. So some stats for last school year, we had 14 paid internships. 15 of the 20 were offered continued employment. $18 was the highest wage per hour offered. That was exceeded this past summer. And then 2 students registered to become an apprenticeship, meaning their education at Cleveland Community is free, and the business agreed to hire them full-time with incremental increases in wages. So next slide, next slide. We can keep going with the slides, Okay, so this summer, we offered internships this summer. Wasn't sure how that would go. We had 10 students complete the program. And then currently this semester, drum roll, we have 22 students who are finishing up an internship. And a couple of weeks ago, this is a picture from the final presentation. Students are required to give a final presentation, and the parents, business host, CCS staff, and school board members were invited. So this semester, we had 18 new businesses. So to date, we have worked with 43 businesses in Cleveland County in just a year, and we're looking at adding even more to that list. And some great news, in the fall, I applied for a grant through the Dover Foundation, and I'm pleased to announce the successful acquisition of a generous sum amounting to $21,480 for the enrichment of the program. These allocated funds will play a pivotal role in defraying various expenses, including stipends for the students that are not getting paid. Most students do get paid, but we do have students in nonprofit organizations and places where they can't get paid. And so some of that money will go towards stipends for students, the purchase of a timekeeper program, and then students needing equipment on the job, like we have some students in welding positions they might need a helmet or boots, students in healthcare facilities that might need scrubs. So this money will go to that. So thank you to members of the Dover Foundation. And this is a picture. We had 11 students. This is our first group of grant recipients. They are going to receive a $500 check once they make sure we have all their documentation that they have completed their internship. So they were very happy to hear that. And so this is all the intern hosts from this semester, as you can see on the screen. I would like to thank all the business hosts from this semester, as well as all of the ones that have worked with Cleveland County Schools, because without them, the program cannot be successful. The advantages of internships have been beyond what I ever expected. Beyond the acquisition of career-specific knowledge, students are learning soft skills. All internships are never perfect. Sometimes we do have to talk to the students about hey, call if you're not going to be there, some things you shouldn't be doing on the job. But how great is that they can learn that in an experience where they have mentors instead of when they get a, quote-unquote real job, and, this could keep them from getting fired. Furthermore, businesses have gotten to be mentors and often permanent employment at the conclusion of an internship period. And many businesses have stepped up and they get to know them personally, and they've helped them with some personal situations that have been tough for these students. So, and for some situations that, weren't even aware of. So this has been an unforeseen, but yet another positive benefit for students in the program. And so my hope is the internship program will continue to grow. As more businesses will learn about the program, I hope they will step up and offer a chance to mentor a student. And it's been hard to set a number. It's just kind of organically grown. But I have just as many students interning next semester, if not more. So if you would ever like to go to any intern sites, let me know. I would love to take you on some visits, and I think you will see why I love my job. So thank you for the chance to speak about internships, and appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the program.
Thank you very much, and for all the work you've done to grow the program. Next is adoption of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion that I'd like to make a motion for me to be put on the agenda to talk about bullying, our statutes and policies. I called last week or week before to be added to the agenda, and I was told that I had to wait till now.
Okay, that's the first I've heard of it. So what's the point of the discussion so that members...
Policies, bullying, and statutes.
Where do you want to put this in the agenda?
It don't matter now, as long as it gets in there.
Well, are you wanting to do it before committee reports or after?
Yes, that'd be fine.
All right, so that would be, we'll call that 5.1.
Can I ask a question about that?
Hold on a second. So we have a motion to amend the agenda to add discussion of policies, bullying, and statutes at 5.1. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Spurlock.
Is this going to be like you talking to us, or are we going to, because none of us is going to have a conversation unless we kind of know what, none of us, this caught all of us by surprise. So we don't know. Yeah.
Okay, can I answer that?
Yes, if you can give some more detail of what the purpose of the discussion is.
Well, the discussion, you said it caught by surprise. Well, you knocked me slam out the front door when y'all censored us. I can't, so now, does that tell you anything?
Yeah, it tells me what you're going to talk about.
No, it might not. You might not know what we're gonna talk about.
Quick point of order, could you ask the members to address the chair?
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
I'd like to be a little bit more specific. We could be here all night talking about this. If you can just be more specific. I'm not against it. I just would like to know specifically what we're going to talk about. That's broad. Which policy? Which statutes? There's a lot of statutes in that green book. There's a lot of policies. Which policy?
Well, the bullying, the statute 143, 115-82, we can talk about that. 143-318.
143-318 is open meetings.
And that will be the open meetings, yes.
what specifically concerning open meetings?
We're gonna get to it.
Or if you could just give me specifically before I vote.
Okay, all right. Concerning we had 4 board members in a committee meeting. A 5th one came in. That becomes an open meeting,
Okay.
and that's what I want to discuss, and others will discuss on that
Because the
too.
fifth one came in?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So, this was brought up obviously in the policy committee.
that's right.
And we voted
You got your mic
unanimous.
on?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. So this was in the policy committee meeting, and Mr. Grigg brought it up for discussion, and we discussed it, and we unanimously agreed to allow Ms. Sink to come back with a memorandum of law to our next meeting. So why don't we let that process work on that particular subject? I don't know the other things, but this particular one, that was the agreement we had made with Ms. Sink, was for her to bring it back to the next policy. So I'm not going to be in favor of changing the horse in the middle of the stream on that. That's what we agreed to. So,
Well, I'll just say this. Can I
Yeah,
have the floor?
go ahead.
If it's about 5 people being in the meeting, I think our attorneys has been very specific. As long as there's no official action taken, that committees are just an advisory to the board. Mr. Blanton, if you recall, I had a presentation put together on health benefits. Myself, Ms. Green, Mr. Glover, and Mr. Queen were on that committee. You came to that committee meeting.
Did I participate?
Yes, you participated. You didn't vote, but you participated. You brought some figures with you and showed those figures.
Yes, sir.
At that time, I did not think you broke any law.
I'm going to call a point of order there myself. We're starting to get into the actual discussion.
Well, I mean,
of
if
it.
we're gonna talk about 5
Right.
people in the meeting, are we gonna discuss that one as well?
Well, I would think.
I don't
that
think we-
If the amendment gets approved, then we can talk about it. But we need to keep the discussion to the amendment, not the content of the amendment, or just whether we need to decide whether we want to add it and talk about it tonight. Any other questions or discussion on adding to the agenda? All right, all right, so the amendment is to add a discussion of policies, bullying, and statutes to 5.1, which would be after the minutes and before our committee meeting minutes. So those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. In favor of the amendment.
in favor of adding.
Wait, that we get to talk
That
about.
we discussed it.
Yeah.
That we discussed General Statute 143, 318.
Is that the timeout? That would require, that amendment's, what Mr. Blanton asked for is very broad. You're talking about something very specific. So what are we voting on? I don't understand.
Okay, well,
Please forgive me.
I'm all for talking about General Statute 318, 14, but
So we need to do separate amendments or something to specify, because that's so broad.
Yeah, Chairman, he brought up 3 different items he was gonna put in this.
Okay.
And I agree, we're not just talking about one policy, we're talking about 3 different policies.
Okay, so, all right, understood, that could take a considerable amount of time. We could, as part of the amendment, set a time for debate, and once we reach a certain amount of time, we cut it off. That would be a proper motion to set a time. What's the official term, Mr. Sink? Is it time, set a time for debate?
Time for debate, but it's a motion to amend to do so.
Yeah, we would have to do another amendment to set a time, to limit the debate.
Well,
And we could limit it to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours, whatever the board decides.
I'm gonna say 5 to 10 minutes max.
Okay, let's keep things in order. We're talking about multiple things again. Let's specify first, what are we voting for first? Is it?
I don't think we'll ever be
Shores?
able to specify that.
Well, Mr. Shores and Mr. Blanton set a specific general statute, so can we do that one and then deal with the other one separately?
We'll have to leave that up to the folks that made the motion. So do we want to limit this to two specific statutes? There were two listed, 115C-82. I don't recall which one that is off the top of my head. 143-318 is open meeting law.
Well, 11584, that is the calendar law, and I was going to discuss that about that.
Well, we
If we
have-
were going to make action on it, we wait.
There's a whole separate section for the calendar. That's
Okay, all right.
Well, based on mine and your conversation, can I make a motion on something right now?
All right, we have an amendment on the floor. We've got to dispense of that unless you're going to amend the amendment. We can go too deep.
Joel, you want to amend the amendment?
Well, I'll amend the amendment to say we talk about General Statute 143-318, and we remove the part of the calendar until next month,
Okay?
based on mine and Mr. Blanton's conversation prior to the meeting. I think he's got some information that we all may benefit from to move that. Now, the other stuff I don't know, but that's my amended motion.
Okay, so you're amending the motion to limit discussion to,
143-318,
which is a general statute that would eliminate the policies, the bullying.
and I don't think, that's why I just want to remove the other part from the agenda until January, the calendar part.
So, Chairman, I think he's talking about amending the agenda to take out part 11.01.
No,
No?
No.
Okay.
we got to dispense some
Is that-
motions that are on the floor. So the motion on the floor right now is to amend the agenda by Mr. Blanton to include discussion of policies, bullying, and statutes. That has a second. Mr. Shores is amending that amendment to limit that discussion to open meeting law, 143-318.
Okay. Where did the calendar part come in that Mr.
Because
Shores was talking about?
Withdrew that.
That's already been
Okay.
taken care of.
Okay.
That'll be later on during the superintendent's update. So, is there a second to Mr. Shore's amendment?
I'll second.
Who did I hear first? Mr. Fitch. All right, let me make sure I'm getting all this right.
Could you please restate this when you get that written down to what we got exactly what we're voting on, please?
Okay, if this amendment passes, so we have to vote in reverse order. So if this amendment to the amendment passes, then the discussion at 5.1 will be limited to open meeting law, which is 143-318. Is that clear to everybody? Okay, those in favor of, I'm going to call it the Shores Amendment, for lack of better terms, so I don't have to keep saying it. So those in favor of the Shores Amendment, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? So that carries 7 to, Mr. Taylor, are you still with us?
Did you press the vote?
Yeah, it's on.
I think he had to leave. I think he sent a text, he had to leave.
Oh.
Okay, so now, since that's been approved, the original amendment has been limited to 143-18, so we have to vote on that, and then we'll take another vote to approve on the whole agenda as approved. Hey, call Henry Roberts, it's his
Well,
rules.
I
So-
guess I should have in my, said where we was gonna put it in the agenda.
Well, it'd be the same thing at 5.1. It'll
Okay,
be right after
5.1, okay,
approving the minutes.
okay.
Okay, so now we're voting on the original amendment, the Blanton amendment as amended. Everybody understand? So that means we're going to put a discussion at 5.1 to talk about open meetings law. Everybody good? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. 4, 5, 6. Any opposed? Okay, that carries 6 to 2. All right. Now, one more vote on the agenda, so now that means we're approving the whole agenda with the amendment. Everybody clear?
Make a motion to approve.
I'm running out of place on my paper here. So Shores and Bridges. All right, any further discussion on the agenda?
Are we gonna limit the time on that particular discussion?
Nobody made the motion for that.
I make a motion to limit the
We already have a
time.
motion on the floor to approve the agenda. Any questions on approving the agenda? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 7-1. All right.
Now can I make the motion to limit the time?
I would-
The agenda's approved.
Well, you could,
Thanks.
Mr. Sink is well, first of all, if we're going to do that, then I'll hold you to do it when we get to that part. But is a motion to limit time, is that a privileged motion? No, I mean that it can be made at any time. A privileged motion can be made any time. Okay. But I'm going to wait for clarity when we get to that point. If you want to make that motion, then you can. When we get to 5.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the attorneys to make sure.
Yes, you can make that motion then.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes. We have the November 13th closed session, November 13th business session, and the November 17th called session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve all three at one time, please.
Motion by Mr. Bridges,
Second.
second by Mr. Humphries. Any questions or comments? Mr. Blunt?
Some of the minutes is not accurate. They don't have things that were said in some of our minutes in our meetings. They are nowhere near accurate. You don't even know what went on in some of the committee meetings.
Well, these are not committee minutes. These are minutes of our board
Well,
meetings in here.
but the thing about it, it's involved in our minutes.
We're not voting on any committee meeting minutes. We're voting on the board meeting minutes that we had in here.
All right, when are we gonna vote on the committee minutes?
We don't.
Minutes.
Well, then the rest of the board members don't know what's going on in these committees, and the people out there don't know. Then if we're not
Well,
if we're not going to include all the minutes, then
No, Mr. Blanton, if you have an issue with the minutes, the correct way to handle that is to offer an amendment and offer correction, and you haven't done that.
well, I guess I need to make an amendment and make a correction. To make a correction on the
Are you doing
minutes.
that now? or-
Yes,
So what's your correction into which set of minutes?
on that, open meeting, ruling, are we gonna discuss that? Because there are nothing on the minutes that I've read that what was said. Our parliamentarian, which is the chair of that committee, he brought out a discussion. Mr. Sink made
Again,
a,
This has nothing to do with committee minutes. This
Okay,
this
that's
is
what I'm saying.
the business session minutes, so.
but how, if the minutes of our committees, which we vote on in here, everybody don't know what went on in those committees.
The minutes are available on board docs. They're-
To everybody to read out there?
Yes, they're in the public section of board
But
docs.
that's what I'm trying to say. The minutes is not wrote down of what
Yes,
took
they are.
place.
Any,
what-
they're there. Any further
Yes, the
discussion on
minutes is
minutes?
there, but not accurate. And you don't have to have like a court of law.
What's his amendment?
My amendment is that, that we discuss the minutes that took place, what took place in that committee.
Well,
meeting.
I'm ruling that motion out of order because it's not a proper motion. It doesn't specify what you want to change in the minutes. Any further discussion on the business meeting minutes?
I've tried to say what
No, you
the
haven't.
chair brought out and what he said, our attorney, what he said.
To make a proper amendment to change the minutes, you need to cite what's wrong and then what it needs to be changed to, and you failed to do so. So I'm
Well,
calling for
I've
the
just got
question.
through
Those
saying
in-
it twice.
Those in favor of the 3 sets of minutes, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion carries 7-1. So now we're at 5.1, which is going to be the discussion per the amendment, which is 143,318. So I'll remind board members we'll limit discussion to that, which is the open meeting law.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we limit this debate to, what's a reasonable amount of time? This is all new to me.
You're making the motion,
10 minutes.
okay? 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Humphries to limit debate to 10 minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitch. I believe that motion's not debatable, correct? Because it's simply a time. Okay. All right, those in favor of limiting debate to 10 minutes, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? So that carries 6-2. Hang on, let me set the timer. Mr. Blanton, this is your agenda items, or you're free to begin.
Okay, I've done a little checking on the open meeting laws, and I sent it to the North Carolina School of Government. I talked to several different people, and when there are 4 board members on a committee already in, the 5th one makes that a quorum. So, the ex officio, and our chair is that. He has the right to go in. And one of our attorneys, or both of the attorneys, was in that meeting. And board member Mr. Humphries is the chair of that committee. And he said, is this legal or right by 5 board members coming in? Mr. Sink, our attorney, spoke up and said, I'd rather turn this over to Mr. Humphries, Mr. Gregg, because he is in that committee. But I did get some information, and he got information too, that our attorney said, as long as he does not participate, he's fine. He can sit there as long as he wants to. Okay? Well, that changed after it left. And they was talking about the calendar law then. That was the policy, I think, and the thing they was talking about. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Gregg, because he done quite a bit and talked to quite a few people, and that I talked to 6 lawyers, North Carolina School of Government, and they all say that he does have the right to go in, but he does not have the right to participate by being an ex officio. That has to be advertised as an open meeting, and the way it goes. Yes, our meetings are advertised for the public, but we've got our committee meetings advertised on one sheet and our board meetings advertised on another. And so the committee meeting, that is a different apple from our regular board meeting. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gregg.
Mr. Gregg?
Well, I was in that meeting, and to be honest with you, I wasn't really all that prepared for tonight, but I did get in touch with the North Carolina School Board Association and ask those questions. And the information that was provided back to me was that when we have 4 members in a committee, that when a 5th member sits in, they can sit in as part of the public, but they cannot participate in that meeting. We were talking about the school calendar, and of course, Mr. Queen did bring up a few things about that school calendar at that time. Mr. Sink was in there when that took place, and so was Ms. Sink. And Mr. Sink did step up and say, well, as long as he doesn't participate, it's okay for him to be in the room. So, you know, I went by what Mr. Sink said. Once I started doing a little calling around, spoke with Speaker Tim Moore, a couple of judges, Judge Trey Allen, Justin Brackett, and they told me that it was.
Can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yes.
I think this is very important. Judges are not allowed to give legal advice, and you just threw names out there. The Judges Ethical Committee, by this being on camera, will have these judges investigated. I would caution you, if you did talk to them, you just threw 2 judges under the bus. Because they are not allowed by law to give advice, and they'll tell you that. So.
What they gave me wasn't advice. It
You just
wasn't
said
advice.
you talked to them about it.
I did, I talked to them.
All right, let's
I
let
asked
Mr.
them
Grigg finish
about-
at his own peril. We
I asked them
approach
about
5
the
minutes.
law and how that pertained to the law. It wasn't about advice. Advice is asking, what should I do? And that's not what I asked. But the thing about it is, we did bring it back up in the committee meeting. We were told that the people that gave me the information, their opinions were valuable, but that was just their opinions. So really, Mr. Robert Joyce, who is with the Better School Government, he made the comment also that that was not appropriate to have that happen in any setting, that it did change that meeting once that happened. Even though it was an ex officio member, that he still could not participate in that meeting. So that's basically all I have on that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a suggestion, if we allow the Sinks to respond.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. We're at just over 6 minutes, so I was going to call on Mr. Sink to provide any information he sees fit, and you've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, here's a semester-long class at the UNC School of Government in 3+ minutes. This was an open meeting of the committee before the chairman stepped into the meeting. That means it had to be noticed, properly noticed, in enough time for the public to have access to attend that meeting. That is the entire spirit of this law when you get into 143-318. So there's no dispute that it was an open meeting at all. It was an open meeting, properly noticed. We went back and factually checked that. Within 5 or 15 seconds, you were able to click onto the website, Mrs. Sink, and access the standing committee meeting notice for the policy committee, where it is, so that the public can access that. That's why this matters. That is why this matters, is for public notice, so that they can access it when the board is doing its business. Now, I want to draw a distinction, because at law, we're throwing around 143-318 over and over and over. So here's what's important about that. The majority of the members of a public body, they were present, check, for the purpose of conducting hearings, participating in deliberations, or voting upon or otherwise transacting the public business within the jurisdiction, real or apparent, of the public body. If you don't remember anything else, remember this from what I'm saying. A committee, a board committee of a body politic cannot act on behalf of the full board. That is why no law, in our opinion, was violated. We talked to the School of Government. We talked to Bob Joyce. Bob Joyce told us in our conversation, it was specifically Leah, in her conversation with Bob Joyce, who I've gone to dozens of times over the last 14 years, that half the judges might call it a technical violation, half the judges might not. Board policy Your board policy today allows the chairman, whether it's you or somebody in the future, Mr. Queen, to participate as an ex officio member of that committee. The tradition of this board has been for ex officio not to mean a voting member, and that's why you, I think I left after 10 minutes into the committee, Leah stayed, participated but did not vote. You talked, but you did not vote. So what is participate? Well, we don't have another 5 hours to deliberate that. And I do apologize for that. I wish I could talk for 30, 45 minutes on this, because I do think it matters. There was proper notice, standing notice. It was noticed from the dais, and whether it's Mr. Queen or somebody else on this board who's chairman, in our legal opinion, it was not a violation of law or policy. If anything needs to be looked at here, in our opinion, without giving legal advice, but a suggestion that has come from the board and not me, it is looking at this policy and going from there, potentially tweaking the policy.
Mr. Chair, can I just say one thing that,
Real quick, there's
Yeah.
10 seconds.
all right, I would like, if they have these people they've talked to write this down, because if it is a violation of law, we not only have one that's violated, we got two. That's you and you.
All right, we've reached our 10-minute limit, so debate has ended for this subject. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. So we move on to committee reports. First is Finance and Personnel, Mr. Shores.
Well, I got my notes here somewhere. The meeting was November the 30th at 2 o'clock. Mr. McDaniel introduced Mr. Vince Quinn from Anderson, Smith, and White, who conducted an audit of financial statement of Cleveland County Schools for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Quinn shared his full report and his audit process. He reported no findings of concerns and shared the opinions of the report. Committee members asked questions regarding the audit and the process. The audit will be shared with the whole board as required by law and will be posted online. Dr. Fisher shared the district's PRC 071 plan. This is a teacher bonus supplement that is allotted as part of the state legislation to equalize supplements across counties. Each county receives a different amount of money depending on status. Cleveland County Schools received almost $2.9 million. Our recommendation is to give eligible teachers with 15 years or more of experience the maximum bonus amount, which will be $2,250 per teacher. For eligible teachers with 14 years or less experience, they will receive an equal share of remaining balance. This bonus will be paid to teachers in their January check. The district will have to find a way to cover North Carolina PREK teachers. The committee unanimously approved this proposal. Ginger Jackson shared MacBook buyback information and her recommendation for approval. The devices involved in the buyback are a mixture of devices from multiple years, with a large majority of them being the second set of teachers' MacBook Air devices that were purchased in 2020. Bids were received from 8 vendors. Cal State Electronics DBA Total Technology is recommended for approval to the purchase of these decommissioned devices. The response offered the highest guaranteed and potential value. The committee unanimously approved Ms. Jackson's recommendation. Dr. Fisher and Donna Pierce shared ESSER update. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 are complete or expired, and ESSER 3 continues to be in the process of being used. ESSER money must be used by September of 2024. With no new business, the meeting was adjourned. The next meeting will be January the 4th at 2024 at noon.
That is. Thank you, Mr. Shores. Just as
One
a-
question.
Yes, sir.
Did you give a price on 14 years and under? Did you give a number on that?
It's going to be, we're giving the teachers with 15 years or more $2,250.
Right.
The remaining balance will be divided out equally amongst however many teachers. We didn't have that number. It's just
Oh, okay.
whatever the pot is will be divided by that amount of teachers.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, as Mr. Shore stated, our audit will be online. Should you have trouble sleeping one night and would like some help, you can read our 100-page financial audit. So we have a couple action items. First is the buyback program on our electronic devices. Again, that's with CSE, doing business as Total Technology. They have guaranteed to pay $324,533. Depending on the quality of the devices, that could go up north of $400,000. That does come from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? We already got that. Any questions on the buyback? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. And that carries 8-0. Next is the PRC 071 plan. This is the supplement. Again, that's $2,891,664. As Mr. Shore stated, those teachers with 15 years or more would get $2,250. Eligible teachers with 14 years or less will divide the remaining balance. The payout on that would be January of '24. And as I understand, that's one lump check. Is that right, Mr. McDaniel? Okay. That comes from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 8-0. We do have our personnel report. This is our standard report, which includes personnel and substitutes. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion.
And by motion by Mr. Bridges, second by Mr. Blanton. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 8-0. We'll move on to educational programs. Mr. Humphries.
Rodney. So we met on, Education Programs Committee met on Friday, December the 1st. Mr. Spiller, I'm sorry, get my eyes adjusted here. Mr. Spiller, the Director of Office of School Readiness, presented information regarding the October 23rd PCSB report and Head Start financial report. The committee approved the budget as presented, and the budget will be presented to the full board here shortly. Christina Martin from the Kings Mountain Library presented information about current outreach efforts between the library and Cleveland County Schools, and they're substantial. If you get a chance to check into that, it's pretty amazing what they're doing over there. Dr. Bennett, Executive Director of Middle Schools and Accountability, updated the committee on the current efforts regarding a reading and math adoption program. Dr. Bennett updated the committee on stakeholder input that is being gathered to direct the work and next steps. Chief Technology Officer Ginger Jackson updated the committee on the district's buyback on student Chromebooks. The committee discussed the proposal as well as plans to reappropriate the buyback funds. And we just voted on that. And with no other business, the meeting was adjourned. The next meeting for the committee is scheduled for Friday, January the 5th at 11 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. We do have one action item in educational programs. That's the Head Start reports. There are two reports, the Policy Council summary and the financial report. Both of those are for October of '23. Comes from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 8-0. I'll fill in for Mr. Taylor on the Operations Committee report. The December 1st meeting of the Operations Committee was called to order by Chairman Greg Taylor. Dr. Wampler provided the committee with information related to the three architectural firms that were selected to present on the RFQ for the Kings Mountain Middle Building Addition. Presentations were heard from three architectural firms, ADW, McMillan Padson Smith, and Holland and Hamrick. Immediately following the presentation, a third discussion concerning each firm took place. Dr. Fisher facilitated the discussion. After much discussion, Holland and Hamrick was unanimously recommended as the architect for the Kings Mountain Building Addition project. This recommendation will go to the full board for approval in December. Dr. Wampler and Chip Childers provided the capital projects report for review by the committee. As usual, this report will be attached to the board's agenda in December as an information item. With no additional business, the meeting was adjourned, and the next Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, January 5th, 2024 at 9 a.m. So we do have one action item there. That is the approval of the architect for the Kings Mountain Middle School addition, and again, just as clarification for the rest of the board, that this will get started with some design documents, floor plans. It'll stop short of engineering design. It gives us something to start doing some financial planning and understanding what the cost for that project may be. So this does come from committee recommending the selection of Holland and Hamrick for that project. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 8-0. On to Policy Committee, Mr. Humphries.
The Policy Committee met on Tuesday, November the 28th at noon. As a part of ongoing policy manual review, I led the committee in reviewing policies 2400, 2410, 2420, 2430, 2440, 2450, 2460, 2470, and 2475. These policies are part of the 2000 section of the Board Policy Manual, which is board operations. No changes were recommended to these policies by the committee. Dr. Fisher gave an update to the committee related to graduation policies. There is still discussion at the State Board of Education level regarding the recent changes to graduation credit requirements and early graduation by the General Assembly. The committee is waiting on clarification from the state level before updating our policies. Dr. Fisher gave an update related to the Parent Bill of Rights policy to the committee. He shared how to access the information on the district's webpage and ongoing work to build the page. We are in compliance with the law with our policies. Dr. Wampler shared suggested updates, to the policies 4040/7310, 4110, and 4342. These changes were suggested by the North Carolina School Board Association Policy Division due to recent changes in the law. The Policy Committee reviewed the updates and supported the changes as presented. These policies will go to the full board tonight for first read. Mr. Grigg shared concerns he had related to our policy that allows ex officio participation in committee meetings. Mr. Grigg shared that he had consulted with the North Carolina School Board Association, UNC School of Government, a few judges and lawmakers regarding the situation and felt there were issues. Board Attorney Leah Sink shared her thoughts on the situation. The committee discussed the concerns presented. The committee asked Mr. Sink to prepare a memorandum of law on the matter and bring it to the next Policy Committee meeting for review. With no additional new business, the meeting was adjourned. The next Policy Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January the 30th at 2024 at noon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. There are 3 policies on the agenda for first read. Those are 4110, immunization and health requirements for school admission, 4040/7310, staff and student relations, and 4342, student searches. And again, those are, I think, relatively minor changes to keep up with some recent law changes. Move on to Safety Committee, Mr. Fitch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Safety Committee meeting of Tuesday, November 28th was called to order. The committee opened with an update regarding the annual school safety grant, hearing that the grant was submitted on behalf of the schools on time, aligning with the individual school needs assessment that were conducted at each location. During agency reports, Fire Marshal Philip Lane reported successful school visits and provided some additional tips and reminders for schools as they approach the holiday season. David Pless mentioned the upcoming basketball season spectator guidelines that will be in place for the second consecutive year, as it means for making sure the student in elementary and/or middle school is accompanied by an adult when attending a high school game. Rodney Borders mentioned the parental calls and complaints are down this year compared to previous years, as well as the overall call volume for the central office, commending schools on their customer service. Dr. Scholl continued by providing an update regarding the arrival and implementation plan for the new high-volume walk-through metal detectors. Danny Blanton mentioned the high school student identification badges, noting the importance of having such IDs. Walter Spurlin made mention of additional uses for the IDs, making the eventual use and need more necessary as the schools and districts continue to provide more efficient process for the use of the badges. The next Safety Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 30th, 2020 at 12 noon.
2020 or 24?
24.
All right, I was paying attention, so thank you, Mr. Fitch. Next, we have a report from Dr. Fisher, Superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We do have some information on the 24, 25, and 25, 26 calendars for your discussion and/or consideration tonight. I'm going to briefly run through these calendars just to kind of bring us back to where I think we left off last meeting and to engage in discussion for today's meeting. You have multiple documents in the folder at your seats. You have these calendars that have been on our website for the last month. You have feedback given to that. You have a vote tally sheet with some comments there as well. Just a couple things. This is draft A. It's an early August start. Actually early, but it's the 14th. It is a balanced calendar. Exams are before Christmas. A couple things with this calendar, highlighting that is the students will start the 14th. Community college starts the 15th. You good?
I'm here.
So community college starts the 15th. We do have a teacher work day after parent-teacher conferences. You can see we have 3 days at Thanksgiving. Veterans Day is off. We do have 2 full weeks of that students are off for Christmas. The end of the second 9 weeks is in there before Christmas in December for exams. The semesters are as balanced as we could get those. You see, we do have 2 work days in January for the turnaround of the semester, Martin Luther King holiday. Again, there's a work day after parent-teacher conferences, a work day at the end of the third quarter. One of the comments that you see on this calendar is questions about Easter. Touch base with that briefly last month, that Easter is late this year. Typically, our spring break is the week after Easter, but this week, the recommendation is to have it before Easter because we will begin with AP exams that first week of May, and the committee just felt like, coming back there, only having 1 week prior to AP exam starting. You'll also have the beginning for EOG prep real quickly there with a late start. The recommendation is to start there the week before, spring break before Easter. We do, the last student day is there, the Wednesday after Memorial Day. Some comments about why not stop students before Memorial Day. You can do that. The concern you have is anytime you take a day away, a student day away, you can replace it with a work day, which is legal, but you do get to a situation where you could very quickly run out of student days in the case you have inclement weather. The law says you have to have 185 or 1,025 instructional hours. Obviously, we don't have 185 days. We use the 1,025 instructional hours. And so when you think about that, the day has about 6 instructional hours in it. By the time you take away lunch, you take away recess, there's more or less 6 instructional hours. So you start doing the math, every day you take away is a potential day of inclement weather. Now, you may have a year, like we did last year, no inclement weather days. It was a great year for Mr. Plesh and I not having to make that weather call. We like those, and that just gives more instructional time. If we have some snow, we have days built in the calendar that we don't have to make that up. But if you start backing off of that, I think this is 179 days. If you start backing that up to 177, 176, then you quickly become a situation where you may, if you have a big snow, you may end up having to take days. The problem is when you have that is a lot of times we don't get snow here until February, even sometimes the beginning of March. And if you look there, if you get snow at the end of February, you have very little student days teacher work days to go get those days, so you end up getting the spring break, which is bad for everybody. So that's the reason why we extend that as late as we can. One of the other comments is, what about taking that work day, June 2nd, and putting it up there in August the 5th? And so people don't have to work at all during June. Again, that makes sense. However, teachers have to have work days in 11 months. It doesn't impact what we send to the retirement system. So we need that day in June to make sure that teachers have a work day in 11 of the months. Although they're only 10-month employees, because they only work 215 days, the way it's reported to retirement system, it could get messy. So this calendar checks that. This calendar obviously has an early start date there Wednesday the 14th. If we look at draft B is compliant with the draft B is compliant with the calendar law. It has a Monday start of the 26th. This calendar does not have a teacher work day after parent conferences. The reason that is because we're trying to get as many days in before exams, before Christmas, because in this calendar, we do have exams before Christmas. The challenge with this calendar is the semesters are not balanced. First semester is really short, second semester is longer. If you're teaching year-long class, you're teaching elementary or middle school, it doesn't matter as much. But when you're teaching high school, it does matter, because contact hours and the amount of time spent with instruction in those courses matters, especially if I'm teaching an EOC or my child has a class in that fall. It is different than the spring. There will be challenges of covering the content in that short semester class their first semester. So that's the concern there. Second semester is long. You can see that when you start later, you get out later. And some of the conversations, I don't like starting early in August. Well, if you don't start early in August, you're going to go later in June. So there again, you can see that the last day of school is a week later. Teachers are really going a week later. So there is a trade-off regardless of which side of that you get into. Option 3, draft 3, has a start that hits the calendar law. This calendar is a balanced calendar. This calendar gets the least amount of positive reviews because it has exams after Christmas. You can see there that the exams, the semester doesn't start till semester break there in January. So that's not a good calendar for testing wise. Other than that, it is similar to option B there. We did propose, go ahead and put out draft calendars for 25-26. And the rationale of that is to really get 2 years out for planning purposes, for people, for parents, to make sure they're knowing what the next year. This is really what we've done in tradition in terms of trying to work at least a year ahead with that. We'd like to get back in terms of that, so for planning purposes. Be glad to hit any of these calendars that are 25-26, but the 25-26 calendars, A, B, and C, very similar to the 24-25 calendars, A, B, and C, and you can see that in the results. So Ginger, if you'll switch. So part of the discussion is to get, public vote, a public recommendation. Obviously, as I mentioned last time in November, this committee has gone through a calendar committee. It's been presented to principal advisory. It's been presented to teacher advisory. Lots of different groups, including multiple committees, discuss this. So we did, after a presentation to the full board in November, we had this out on our website for several weeks. And these are the updated totals as of yesterday. We had 1,271 votes for the 24-25 calendar, 1,264 responses to the 25-26 calendar. You can see the breakdown of those. You've got that, and you've also got some specific detail about concerns with calendars A, B, and C, pros and cons. It's like anything. It's funny, some of the concerns are, I want to start late August, don't want to start early August, but I want the semesters to be balanced, and I want to finish before Christmas. Well, all those are not options, and meet the hours requirement that we need to have. We had one comment, which, that'd be great, let's don't start school till, that second week of September, after Labor Day, that'd be great, but there again, you can't do that and get your exams in before Christmas and balance the calendar. So, Mr. Queen, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that folks have about the calendars, about any feedback. I know you've got lots of documentation there at your spot with calendar related. You do have a copy as requested, copy of the calendar law with some important things highlighted that was a request. You also have a draft resolution that's very similar to a resolution that we've passed the board in the past. Vice Chairman Shores recommended a couple additional things to put in the calendar, and we've done that in the draft you have. So tonight, you have a couple different things you can do. You can approve a calendar for 24-25. You can approve a calendar for 24-25 and 25-26. You can approve a calendar and the calendar resolution, or a different combination of any of all of those. So you have a couple options for your consideration tonight. Again, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Blunt?
I'd like to make a motion that we extend this to January instead of voting tonight, and just make sure on some information that I got from Mr. Alexander, Ted Alexander, our senator, and if we can get anything else, and to make sure, I know in this policy 115-82, the local board and individual schools are encouraged to use the calendar flexibility in order to meet the annual performance and standards set by the state board. Local boards and education shall consult with parents and employ the public school personnel in the developing of their school calendar. That is the general statute 115C-84-2 that I just read that off of.
All right,
But
hold on before you get, because you made a motion,
Yeah.
All right, so your motion is to postpone the vote until January.
yes,
No, postpone's the right.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Blanton and a second by Mr. Shores to postpone until January. What's the date on the January meeting?
8th, I believe.
Is it the 8th?
Yep, January
8th. So this would be a motion to postpone until January 8th, which will be our next regular business.
I just want us to make sure that, they say that we're supposed to follow the law, okay? One part in this law here, it says that we can. In another part of this law, it says we can't. So I just want to make sure that we're following the law and not breaking the law. I'm for these kids getting those exams, and I know these teachers wants to give them before Christmas and everything.
Well, if you would get the information to Dr. Fisher that you got from Mr. Alexander.
Well, I'm gonna try to get some more, but
And we'll-
me and Dr. Fisher talked a little bit about that, so I don't
Well,
know.
I've already got a second from Mr. Shores. Mr. Spurling.
So is this, if we postpone it till next month, is this going to cause any conflict in scheduling with teachers or administration or anything like that?
I really can't answer that question, Mr. Spurling, because I don't know. From a central office staff perspective and a planning standpoint, no, sir. Now, whether people are sitting there waiting on this to get approved for them to do their own personal planning or business, I don't know that. I don't have that answer. But from a district organizational perspective, no, it's not gonna, whether we approve it now or January, it's not gonna, create, issues there for us.
So can I make one comment?
Sure.
I think it's fine with me if we postpone it, but I do think if somebody like Senator Alexander had information, instead of going through one of the board members, I would think they would go through the chairman or the superintendent.
Sir,
so that
I made the
I'm not
call.
talking to you, so that the whole board would have that information ahead of time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. Maybe this will help some people as far as where I'm leaning. it is impossible to abide by that law both ways. It says you got to start on a certain date, and then it says you shall get the opinions of school staff and the public. And 68% like the first option, 26% like to say, that's 94% want this first semester to end before Christmas. If we follow that law, we just kick that 94%. We're basically violating the law because we're not listening to these people. So regardless of whichever way it goes, I'm for the ending before Christmas. Mr. Blanton showed me something that has my curiosity up. I don't think, as far as if people are planning, I think I know where most of the boards are going to fall, but I just would like to see that information is the only reason that, because I'm for calendar A. I think that's the one that, because the other one's so unbalanced. I mean, it's not fair to kids to end at December 1. How many days is it difference?
20.
Yeah.
20 days? Yeah.
I think option B has some instructional, you're playing instructional lottery, you're playing educational lottery with which semester your kid gets a particular class. I think it creates gross inequities in terms of first semester versus second semester, and puts, some really, interesting challenges into that
Yeah,
calendar.
I don't think that's fair to the student or the teachers to try to, they get 20 more days one semester than they do the other ones with the kids. But
Again, for elementary or middle school.
I understand. I'm talking about the other ones, and
I agree.
To kind of pull us back in, we have a motion on the floor to postpone. Any questions or discussion on the motion to postpone? All right, those in favor to postpone calendar discussion and vote until January 8th, our next regular business meeting, if you'd raise your hand. And that carries 7-0. I think you've got an update.
I've got a couple things I would like to update. Just mentioned in a safety report, the rapid walkthrough devices are delivered to our schools, are being implemented, phased in those schools. They're getting used to that. Here's a good picture of that being used at Shelby High School. I appreciate Dr. Scholl from a district standpoint, and our schools working to get these up and running and calibrated and working right. So really appreciate that work. The Agape Awards, a couple weeks ago, was after our last meeting. We had that as an announcement. This is one of the Agape winners from West Elementary. A great night to recognize our staff and the Agape winners, and our students were heroes. Just a little update of Burns High School. You see, this actually picture was a couple weeks ago, and so it is even more finished, if you will, than this. But there's the seats in the auditorium, standing in the back of the auditorium at Burns High School. Those auditoriums are awesome. They're going to look really, really good. So that's the inside of the highlighting the seats there at Burns High School. I've got a picture of Crest in just a minute later in the slide deck. As I go around, just taking pictures of really great things, and this picture does your heart good. Pre-K school, preschool students at Elizabeth Elementary enjoying a reading lesson. I'm not sure who's enjoying the lesson more, the students or the teachers, and the teacher there just obviously excited about the instructional work that she's doing there with students. Those of you that attended the KGO meeting last week heard an excellent performance by Shelby High School Choral Group. Did a great job of providing a Christmas entertainment for that group. Really proud of those students and the performance that they gave. This is a little bit distorted picture to get it blown up right, but this is the lobby at Crest High School. It's a good picture of the terrazzo there that they're finishing working on that terrazzo in that lobby. This is obviously, I can tell it's Crest because they've got the green terrazzo. Burns will have a blue terrazzo. In those schools, the carpet is being put down in the auditoriums. Again, the Burns has the blue color highlights there. Crest is green. Looks really, really good. Once that terrazzo and all of that work in that lobby comes, it's really going to pop. Really, again, highlights of great instruction going on. Thought this was a great picture sent to us from Kaiser Elementary. Science class, a young person's really excited about what he's doing in terms of science. No wonder with dedication and intensity like that, they get great scores on their science work dedication. CTE classrooms, we've heard about internships today. Here's some work that students in their Foods One classroom working in CTE Foods One. Here's an intro to plumbing at Crest Middle School. These students are learning from professionals and getting some career experience there of fields they may want to go into. Math Day, just recently here at Central Services, looks like an intense conversation of solving math problems between those students. Again, we've got students working on math days we go through there. This is a good example. Dr. Parker's giving instructions. We do have a resident elf there in that picture as well. We just appreciate everybody's work. Really great to have our students at Math Day. Results there, congratulations to all three teams that placed. Bowling Springs was our winner in first place in Math Day. Did want to highlight and end with this slide. It's some of our students that are doing some community service as part of their program of study. They are out at Landmark Baptist Church spreading mulch, doing some things there. We appreciate the partners at Landmark, but appreciate our students really getting some career work there and doing some things to help their community. Just a couple things. High school exams begin this week. I encourage high school parents and students to make sure they know their exam schedule. Students should know that. Parents, make sure you know your child's exam schedule. If you've got questions, check with your specific high school student or high school about specific testing schedule, when they need to be there, when they're not. I'll tell you a real quick story. My daughter's a high school student, and high school students that have an A or B in their classes and have less than 6 absences don't have to take the teacher-made exam. They have to take any state exam or a federal exam, but they don't have to take the teacher-made exam. Came home over the weekend, she said, "Dad, that's the greatest decision you've made as superintendent, not letting us have the exemption of those exams." So I'm glad I did one thing right in her eyes there. Christmas holiday begins Thursday, December 21st, and runs through Friday, not the Friday, January 3rd, that is Wednesday, January 3rd. Apologize for the typo there. Students return to school on Thursday, January 4th. And we do wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Queen, members of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. Next is public participation. Mr. Shores.
Public comments should not address any specific confidential student or personnel matters. Specific concerns related to confidential student or personnel matters should be directed to the superintendent or his designee. Comments must be relevant to matters that are within the authority of the board. Speakers shall refrain from personal attacks or threats directed towards staff, elected board members, or members of the public. Speakers shall be courteous in their language and presentations. Insults, profanity, use of vulgar language or gestures, or any other inappropriate behavior are not allowed. The board vests in its chair or other presiding officer's authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when he or she does not adhere to the rules established above. Any person who willfully interrupts or disturbs a board meeting may be directed to leave the meeting by the presiding officer. Any person who refuses to leave may be prosecuted for disrupting a public meeting. Persons appear before the board are reminded as a point of information that the members of the Cleveland County Board are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Immediate answers are not generally possible and must be deferred pending investigation and consideration by full board.
Thank you, Mr. Shores. Tonight we have one speaker, Mr. Robert Williams.
My name is Robert Williams. I live at 814 East Stagecoach Trail. That's a Lawndale address, but I live in Falston. My comment tonight is related to the Safety Committee report that Mr. Fitz just read off. The part that concerns me was the part that said Rodney Borders, mentioned that parental calls and complaints are down this year compared to previous years, as well as the overall call volume to the central office, commending schools on their customer service. Well, it doesn't say a word about those 3,200 documents that are floating around that have been requested by public records request by at least 3 entities, myself being one of them. The public records request was to look at various documents over a 30-day period with the keywords bullying, fighting, and violence. I believe all three of those have safety implications. Now, there's a situation that I'm aware of. All the complaints that the schools are not receiving, I'm receiving some of them. People are needing help, and they're not getting it calling school. I personally made a number of calls to the superintendent day after day after day. I never got a return call, never got a message, never got an acknowledgement. It was regarding a student that was being bullied. Now that student is threatening suicide. Something needs to be done. Now, what Mr. Shores just read, I'm not supposed to give out personal information about children here. I won't. I will give it to each of you in a closed session if you want to call one. Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to board member comments. Mr. Fitch, we'll start on your side.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a minute and just thank the teachers and the students for a successful year so far, and wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Mr. Spurlin?
Been on this board for a year now, and I'd like to tell everybody a few things I've learned. CCS is the largest employer in the county, and something like 98% of CCS employees like their jobs. We have a lot of amazing people that work at CCS, people that go beyond their duty descriptions and responsibilities, people that care about others and truly give back to our community. CCS has some great leadership. These people have been teachers and know what it's like. People that relate and truly care. They go the extra mile to ensure employees are taken care of and do their best to give teachers the tools to provide our students with the best possible education. In the military, there are 26 support personnel for every one fighter. We have custodians, food service workers, bus drivers, coaches, assistant teachers, maintenance, finance, counselors, administrators, and so on that support every teacher. Without these people, the system would grind to a halt. I've learned that CCS has some fantastic students, record-breaking athletes, championship teams, hundreds of students with 4.0 averages, and that are awarded millions of dollars worth of scholarships every year. Students that are learning skills through CTE and are in apprenticeship programs even before they graduate. Students that have entered and have succeeded in the military. CCS has over 50 years worth of students that have gone on to do great things. Students that have been productive members of society. I've also learned there are some good people that I serve with on this board. People that sacrifice family time and even monetarily in hopes of improving our community. During my year, I've seen new things like HVAC systems installed, new roofs laid, new elevators installed, security systems being put into place, and 2 long-promised auditoriums built. But I've also learned there are people in our world that continuously look inward for things that can benefit them. These are people who highlight and elevate even the smallest of faults, not to make corrections to improve our organization, but to shine a light on their personal agendas. These people do not serve and make our organization better, but are self-serving at the expense of our community. I do hope and pray this next year comes with everyone asking how we can maintain or better our school system, how we can drop politics and focus that energy on not doing what is better for ourselves, but what best serves our community. Thank you.
Mr. Blunt?
Merry Christmas to everybody, and I hope all the children have a Merry Christmas. I've been here for a good little while. and I'm planning on, I hope I get to stay. But I will work for every last child and every last taxpayer until I'm gone. As simple as that, and if they put me out, then I'll be up there in the public participation to work for our children and the taxpayers of Cleveland County. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Mr. Humphries?
Yeah, first, I'd like to wish all teachers, staff, students, everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Job well done first semester. Today, in particular today, Catherine Truitt did a press release about North Carolina's reading readiness scores for K-3. North Carolina, in a number of instances, is doubling up the nationwide average. We're doing really good in that. In Cleveland County schools, specifically, we've shown marked improvements in phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. I haven't had time to dig through this stuff extensively, but just a snapshot. Phonological awareness has increased 20% in the last 2 years. That's amazing. Decoding, we've increased 10%, and like I say, I'll have to dig deeper into this. But kudos to, first off, Tamara Goforth, who started the PALS program. Dr. Parker has picked up that now, and all this reading stuff, K-3 elementary, is just doing a tremendous job. These people are to be commended, all the teachers that went through the letters training, extensive training, college level training. They did that and did their jobs at the same time, and have just done a tremendous job. That's what we're here for. Educating children, that's all we're here for. And we're doing our teachers and staff are doing an excellent job at that. Well, thank you.
Mr. Grigg?
I went on a school visit today, and I went to the early college over at the LeGrand Center, and I was extremely impressed with what they have to offer over there. And they currently have about 214 students enrolled over there. I do think that this might be something that we need to be focusing on really soon as far as expanding that area, because I do see that it's beneficial. The kids seem to be really grasping what was going on over there, and I think we need to give that school a big hand for what they've been doing so far. And I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everybody, and thanks for coming tonight. I hope you and your families all have a good Christmas.
Mr. Shores?
Just kudos to what everybody said about Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. And I went with Mr. Grigg over to the early college today, and I met a young lady over there that wants to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I think Mr. Grigg would agree with me. If I was a betting man, she's going to be one of the best orthopedic surgeons there is out there. When she's only a junior, but that girl impressed me. And who knows, maybe there's some commissioner candidates around that listen that will maybe think about expanding that over there if they get elected. You just never know. Thank you.
Well, there are so many things to talk about this time of year. It's hard to narrow it down to just a few things, but I do want to thank those 43 businesses that have participated in our intern program. Can't thank you enough for doing that. It's taking time out of your schedule, and you're having to rearrange things and do some extra paperwork and things like that, and you're paying the students to work, so we do appreciate that. Thanks again to the Dover Foundation for the funds they've contributed, and I just think Ms. Benfield, Ms. Klontz, and their team's just knocking it out of the park. And I've said before, talk to these kids and find out what they want to do. I've met young Mr. Sosa from Washington Elementary several times. He aspires to be an aerospace engineer, and he talks to me every time he sees me. He talks about working for NASA and those sorts of things. And so even as young as the fourth and fifth grade, our kids have dreams and aspirations, and being able to spark that and encourage them is one of the best things we get to do as board members. So again, students, remember, Christmas break doesn't start till the 21st. It's not tomorrow. So continue to work hard and get through exams and do a good job. And wish the teachers and staff a Merry Christmas, take a well-deserved break, and come back ready to go in the new year. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make it second.
All right. All in favor can leave. Thank you.